Christ is risen. You know, the other day, I was at the house and I heard my son, and he said, "Oh my God." That's what he says. He says, "Oh my God." And I said, "Don't say that." He said, "Why?" I said, we shouldn't say God's name in vain. We shouldn't just say his name without prayer, or if we're not talking about him intentionally, we shouldn't just say his name in vain. We should say it always with meaning. So when you say the word God or Jesus Christ, it should always be for prayer or to talk of spiritual things with intention. We should be careful with his name, We should be careful with his name. I said that. So don't just say, "Oh my God." And then he said, and I told him, I said, "It's a commandment. It's one of the 10 commandments, actually. It's the 3rd commandment. Don't say the Lord's name in vain. Don't do that." He goes, "Oh, it's a commandment?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You need to tell the whole church about this commandment, because everybody says it." So, just so we know. And it made me think about commandments. And it made me think about, we read a little bit about this in the Lenten prayers. It was after Moses fasted that he goes up into the mountain, Mount Sinai, and he gets the commandments. It's a gift. After his fasting and everything, he goes to Mount Sinai, and they can see the shining that happens there, and he comes down with commandments, the 10 commandments. And I think a lot of us learn this as children, right? That there are 10 commandments, and we maybe memorize them, at some point. One of the commandments I was thinking about was the 4th commandment. The 3rd one is, don't use the Lord's name in vain. But the 4th one is, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And this was done, where there was a day of rest. It was commemorating creation, where God created and did all this work for 6 days. But on the 7th day, he rested. And he was saying we should rest. And even the word Saturday or Sabado is Sabbath, the idea of resting on Saturday. And after the resurrection, the early church said we need to move that to Sunday for the resurrection. It's kind of interesting how the church talks about the Sabbath, that the Lord rested, or God rested on the 7th day. And then the church fathers say how God rested in the earth on that 7th day as well. It's kind of prefiguring. Like he rested on the creation on the 7th day after all this work. And then after the work of the crucifixion and salvation, he rested in the earth. His body was resting in the earth while he was going into Hades. His body was resting in the earth to be resurrected on the 3rd day. And so the church said the resurrection is because it's so important, because it's essential to the gospel message that Christ has triumphed over death and sin and Satan. The Lord's day should be Sunday. And this is the day, and even in the book of Acts we read, on the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, meaning the Holy Qurbana, Paul talked with them intending to depart on the next day. So it just understood in the early church. This is what happened. That the Qurbana, we would make remembrance of the Lord, have the Holy Qurbana on every Sunday. Which is why we have Qurbana every Sunday. No matter what, because of the resurrection. It's actually a festal day every Sunday. St. Ignatius says, those who were brought up in the ancient order of things have come to possession of a new hope, no longer observing the Sabbath, but living in the observance of the Lord's day, on which also our life has sprung up again by him and by his death. This is his letter that he writes. And so we are taught to remember one day in the week to be holy, and the Lord's day is this day. It's a commandment for us. We can say this is the 4th commandment. And even Christ says, I'm not doing this to control you, but if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So we keep commandments out of love. God is not wanting to control us. And we can understand this a little bit when we parent with children. We may have certain boundaries and rules, right? We might say, I don't have a lot of rules, but I have some rules. One of them is like, with my boys, is you can't run in the street. You can't do it. I don't want to hear about it. You can't run in the street. That may seem restrictive. That may seem like, why, what's the problem with that? But I tell them no. Because I know that cars can come and things can happen and all that stuff. You can't run in parking lots, right? You can run in the grass. You can run, in the backyard, but not in parking lots, right? There's a greater picture for his safety that I'm considering. But sometimes those rules can be a lot for him, and it just seems like a lot, When he tries to get out of his room, I say, go change your clothes and brush your teeth. That's what you got to do. Before you get out of your room, don't just come out into the living room, change your clothes, get out of your jammies and put on some regular day clothes and brush your teeth. Got to do that, right? Just trying our best to make rules. But sometimes those rules can feel it's hard for him to respond on that. Right? So sometimes it's just rule after rule after rule. So he'll come to me and goes, Dad, I want to play games on the computer. You have to do your homework first. Dad, okay, fine. Then he'll switch to something. I want to go eat some chips. You got to eat vegetables first. Okay, I'm going to go outside. You got to put a helmet on if you're going to ride your bike. And then sometimes when he sees all these rules, he's like, you just want to control me. You just want to control me. And I thought about that. Because sometimes I think that's how we look at our relationship with God. I just want to sleep in. No, you got to go to church. I just want to go get a burger. Oh, it's a fast. I'm tired. I just want to watch TV. Should pray. I want to buy this thing. I should set a tithe. All these commandments that just seem restrictive. And we may look up to God and say, you just want to control me. You just want to control me. You just want me to do what you want to do. I can't do what I want to do. Even though we say this with our kids, aren't we doing the same thing always? Many times? We look at the commandments of God, we look at the guidance of the church, and we look up to Christ and we say, you just want to control me. I don't know if I like this. And I was thinking about the parable of the prodigal son. Similar thing, and Christ, really, we say the prodigal son, but really the church understands this to be it's not a picture about the son. That's not the point, is to learn about the son. The real picture is to learn about who God is, who our Father is. And it says the father has two sons. You may know the story, but just to refresh. Father has two sons, and the younger son goes to him and says, give me my inheritance. Give me my inheritance and I'll just take it and go. In other words, he says, I don't want your rules. I don't want your relationship, but I know you can bless me and give me things, so just go ahead and give me that. That's what it is. When do you get an inheritance? We only get an inheritance when the person dies. And basically he's saying to his father, I don't want you. You might as well be dead to me, but I know you can bless me, so give me that. And no rules. I'm the leader of my own life. And so he takes the inheritance, and as you know, he starts prodigal living. Prodigal means wasteful. He has all these friends, all these parties, all these women, all this stuff. And guess what? The money runs out. And as the money is running out, the friends run out. The fun times run out. And it comes to a point where he's like, I got to figure out how to make ends meet. And he tries to find somebody who gives him a job feeding pigs. And you can understand, in that Jewish context at the time, is probably one of the worst, filthiest jobs to be considered. But here he is, feeding the pigs. And while he's in that pig slop, he's even looking at the food that the pigs are eating, and he's like, that even looks good to me. Maybe I'll eat that. And then he comes to himself. And he remembers his father. And he says, my father won't take me as a son. I've already cut that tie. But maybe I can go back to him and just be a servant, one of his servants. Even the servants are treated right. So you kind of see that he wanted to do things his own way. his own rules, his own life, no relationship with the Father, and it led him to the pig pen. But then he realizes, this father is good. You know what? I'll just follow his rules like a slave. I'm not worthy to be his son. I did away with that. That option's gone. But let me just be a slave. He's at least that merciful. And his rules are good. Being a slave for him is actually good. I don't need to fight that. It'll be good for me. So I'll be his slave. So he goes back. He makes his way back. And the interesting thing is he's making his way back. And it doesn't say whether he ran back or walked back or what. It doesn't say that. But it says that as he is making his way back, his father is out looking and waiting. And as soon as he sees his son, he starts to run. It says the father ran to him and embraced him and takes him. And he says, Father, I have sinned against you and against heaven. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me at least your slave. And we know the beautiful story. He says, prepare the feast. My son was dead. Now he's alive. And he ran to him, fell on his neck and kissed him and just embraced him. And one thing I think we have to be understanding is God may let us live our own rules. He gives us that freedom. Just like the Father let the Son go. But I hope we understand when we talk about remembering the Sabbath and remembering the Lord's Day and coming to the church and doing the fast and the prayers and the feasts and the tithing and the loving and the forgiving and all of these things that we are commanded. That it's better than the pig pen. And that if we we can try to do things our own way, but it will lead us to a pig pen life. It may not be literally a pig pen, but it will feel like a pig pen. Even with a lot of money, even with a lot of things, even with a lot of stuff, there is a pig pen feeling in us. Unless we decide, my Father really loves me. The church really cares for me. I need not fight this all the time. I need not think that it's the church or Christ is trying to control me. But maybe they know better than I know. There's a bigger picture for them that I can't even understand. For my safety, to protect me, because there are evil things in this world. Just like with our children, we make rules because we know the world can be evil, that there may be evil people or just people that aren't paying attention and our children could get hurt. So we make these rules. The commandments are there because we wouldn't know how to even, just like our kids wouldn't know how to navigate. Little kids wouldn't know what to do with a parking lot, what to do in a street. So we have rules. And it's the same thing with us in the world. We don't know how we're supposed to operate in this world, what matters, how we're supposed to live. So the commandments are for us to be safe from the evil one. It's interesting in the gospel that was read today. We talked about the 10 commandments. And then in the Gospel of John, he says, a new commandment I give to you. A new one. And you got to wonder, it's like, did he forget about it or something? Why is it new? If anything, we read about the commandments, it's fulfilled, right? Like, in the New Testament, it gets further explained, right? Like, so, when we say, in the commandments, don't commit adultery. And then Christ explains that. Even if you have lust in your heart towards someone, you've committed adultery in your heart. Don't kill is a commandment. Even if you have hatred towards someone, you have murdered them in your heart. Right? So he explains it. But here he's not explaining a previous commandment. He's saying, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Why is it new? It's new because the only way that commandment, that we can understand how much he loves us, is because he has to die for us. He has to be crucified for us to understand love. That's why it's a new commandment to love one another, as I have loved you. No greater love does a man have than he lay down his life for his friends. And the reality of it is, and this is the commandment that Christ is saying, love one another as I have loved you. He's telling each and every one of us, we're called to love one another our spouse, our parents, our children, our cousins, our co-workers, our neighbors, our church family, by dying to ourselves. There is no love without the cross. There is no love without humility. The cross is the intersection of love and humility. And for loving relationships to work, you can love somebody, but if there's no humility, then there cannot be a loving relationship. Christ is letting us know that. They go hand in hand. If you want to say that you're a loving person, we have to be a humble person to make love happen in our life. And this is the new commandment that's being given to us. So I encourage us on this feast of the resurrection to embrace the commandments. Maybe review the 10 commandments. Review all the teachings. Review the, you'll notice this. Sometimes I get questioned. People will say, Acha, what's the church's rule on blah, blah, blah? What's the rule? What's the rule, Acha? What's the rule of when I got to come to church? What's the rule of what I got to give? What's the rule of what I got to do? And it just irks me to hear that. Because it makes me feel like, are we just we feel like we're being controlled? What, are we trying to do the bare minimum? What is it? So you'll notice a lot of times when I send messages, I'll say, the church prescribes this. This is what the church prescribes. And I like that because we have to understand this is a hospital. And in order for us to be healed, we got to agree to the plan. Just like a doctor. Doctor can have all sorts of guidance, all sorts of things. What use if the patient doesn't believe and follow themselves? They can only say it. No, we have to exercise, we have to eat right, we have to do it. It's the same thing in spiritual life. It's for our own good, but there's a prescription given to us. So I ask us to say, embrace the commandments wholeheartedly. Because if our Father is willing to, every time we embrace the commandments, we can think, I'm making my way back to the Father's house. And our Father, we just do a little bit and He'll run to us. We just do a little bit. But we have to draw near and then He'll draw near to us. But we got to draw near first. He's already extended Himself on the cross. We have to draw near to that cross. We have to draw near to Him and embrace the commandments as acts of love from a merciful Father who will die for us, who will give His Son for us. And we live in that love and in that humility in the light of the commandments. May all glory be to the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and always, and forever and ever. Amen.